Welcome back to my channel. We're playing 20 questions with.
Jason Waskiewicz, also known as Waskisquirrel.
All right, let's get into the questions. When I say fountain pen, what pen do you think of?
Pilot Custom 823.
All right. How did you get into pens?
So when I was 10 years, I've always been a writer. When I was 10 years old, and this would have been back in the 80s, which dates me a little bit, my family got a pen catalog in the mail. And looking through it, I saw these very cool fountain pens with it. I had no idea what they were. I'd never seen one before in my life, and fell in love with them right there.
Oh, that's great. What was your first pen?
Well, I couldn't afford anything in the pen catalog, but at a local store, I found a Parker Vector.
Okay.
And that pen stayed with me probably into my 30s, and I lost it during one of my moves, unfortunately.
All right. What's your current daily driver?
Right now, actually, I've been doing some note taking this morning while I was waiting. I'm using a vintage Schaefer Legacy.
Ooh, always a nice pen to use. I do love
Yes.
vintage Schaefer. What's your favorite ink?
Well, I am known for using Parker Quink washable blue, but that's not a favorite. I would actually say, and it's no longer made, unfortunately, but Sailor Gentle Epinard. It's just this beautiful dark green that I love.
Okay. I don't know that I've seen it, but now I'm going to have to go and look it up. What's your favorite brand of either pens or ink?
Pens, I have a soft spot for Parker because that was my first, but I think honestly, looking at modern pens, probably either Pilot or Platinum.
Okay. Vintage or modern?
I am a vintage guy. I didn't even get into my favorite vintage pens because some of those companies don't even exist anymore.
Eh. Do you swatch all your inks?
I used to, and I realized one day that I never actually look at my swatches, and so I quit and haven't missed it.
Okay. Do you daily drive the same pen and ink combination or do you switch it up?
Um, it depends. During school, because I'm a teacher, if you didn't know
Okay.
that. During school, Lamy 2000 has the black ink in it. That's what I'm using all day. But during the summer, I like to play around. Like I just emptied out a Pilot Custom 823. Right now, I'm kind of between the Schaefer Legacy, which a viewer sent me, so that's an upcoming video. And right now I'm using this Parker. Suddenly drew a blank. What it's called? Parker pen,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
whatever it is. If I can figure it out, I'll leave a
Sonnet,
link in the
Parker
description.
Sonnet.
Okay.
But yeah, I will switch them up all summer, and then when school starts, I'll be back to the Lamy 2000.
So do you use a waterproof black ink in the 2000 or do you use a water-based when you teach?
I use water based. I don't. I've done some experiments with black ink. Most of them, enough sticks around if it does get wet, because I teach science, so
Okay.
getting wet is a risk in my
Yeah.
classroom. But my favorite black ink is Lamy Black. But over the past couple of years, I've been on this quest to get rid of bottles of ink by using them up. So I've just been going through one bottle of ink at a time of black and using it up. So right now I'm on Omas Black, and who knows what's next.
Hmm. A fun way to play.
Yeah, and I'm realizing that a lot of these bottles just sat there, so this makes me use them up.
All right. Do you have your writing samples of pens in a way that you can flip through them when you're choosing a pen so that you know what the nib looks like? Or do you just know what nib is in what pen?
I know they're like my students. I mean, I know I have over 100 students a day. I know them all not all of them equally well, but you just know, oh, I want something that's good for daily writing. So that's these guys. I want something fun that flexes a lot. I want one of these guys. It's just they've developed their personality, especially the vintage ones. A lot of them I've had to work on. So
Okay. Yeah. Is there a pen you wish you could see in person?
Yes, I'll probably get the name wrong. I know I'm going to get the finish wrong, but it's a Nakaya. It's an ascending dragon, and it's this blue-green finish. And I have seen pictures of it, and never seen it in person. But I would just love to see that pen in person.
I think
It
you're the
just,
second or third person to name that pen in this series.
oh wow.
It is it is a pen that many people want to see in person.
And Nakaya just does. I own a couple of Nakayas, and they just do beautiful work. That particular one costs about half as much as my first car, so I don't know that I'll ever own it, but it sure is beautiful art.
What's your current grail?
Current Grail, um, probably my most unrealistic Grail. I've wanted a pen from every continent, and I have 6 of the 7 covered. I would love to manage a pen from Antarctica, but I somehow feel like that will never happen.
You might be able to convince one of the people that work on one of the bases to like make you a pen.
Yeah, maybe take it there and bring it home because
Take it there as like a kit, finish it on the base, bring it back to you.
yeah, I think that's about the only hope I have for that.
That would be a fun Instagram series. I would watch that. I would be
Yes,
happily
that would.
committed to that.
I'd have to get them to partner with me though down there because it's kind of cold there. I don't know if I want to go there.
What pen would you recommend to a beginner?
To a beginner, something reliable, something like a Pilot Metropolitan or a Lamy Safari. Twisby has some nice pens, although I'm not as familiar with their newer offerings. But or if you want to go the vintage route, something like an Esterbrook J or a Parker 51. Something low cost, pretty easy to fix, and pretty common is what I would say. And those are some good ones.
Yep. What ink would you recommend to a beginner?
Again, I'd go with something mainstream, nothing too weird. I like Parker inks. Parker is easy to find, which bonus if you're just getting into it. Lamy inks are quite good. Pelican inks, those are good, reliable ones. I've never used Waterman, but I hear good things about Waterman. Pretty much any of your mainstream inks.
Yeah. Something non-fussy and non-permanent.
Yes, absolutely. You'll notice Bay State Blue wasn't on that list.
Yes. Bay State Blue has come up a couple times in this series as people's biggest regret, or in the comments section as a came up in the Hemingway Jones comment section.
Oh, okay.
As an ink, Serenity Blue will never make you cry like Bay State Blue will.
Well, I'll
Which,
tell you one of the reasons I painted this living room is I splashed some Bay State Blue on the wall by accident. And that did not come off. Like, okay, I guess we'll get this project started.
the very first thing I ever saw on r/fountain pens on Reddit was a thread about Bay State Blue. I've never even swatched it. I
Mm-hmm.
never want to own a bottle of it, but because everything I see about it is like I had to repaint my walls. My room looks like I murdered a Smurf, and I'm going, why would anyone use this?
It has some interesting properties. I'd like to play with. I don't want a full bottle, but maybe a nice sample. Just like I remember writing on a receipt with it, and the everything around the writing turned kind of yellow close to it and really dark outside that. And it wasn't from feathering; it
Yeah,
was the reaction with the thermal paper that they used for the receipt.
yeah.
And like I said, I'm a science teacher, so that kind of stuff
Now you
appeals to
have
me.
me looking at a roll of thermal paper and like wanting to play with all of these on thermal paper.
Yeah, I think most inks behave pretty well. That one just has interesting properties.
Yeah. What advice would you have for somebody wanting to try out fountain pens who might be a bit intimidated by them?
Well, don't be afraid. Um, but beyond that, just don't press. This is what I tell people when I hand them a fountain pen. Don't press down real hard. It just has to brush across the paper. And then as they get And the other one, surprisingly, the pen writes like this with the nib forward because people are always trying to write with them backwards or sideways or whatever. And
I rotate my pen sideways all the time and I don't realize I'm doing it until I look at my hand and I go, "Oh, that's why like the letters have changed."
yeah, that's what oblique nibs were invented for, I believe.
Yeah, that might be my next investment. I turn my pen too much for.
Yeah,
Um,
it's easy, especially if you get like a Parker 51 where you can't even really see the nib.
I've got Parker 45s and 21s. I
Mm,
don't have a 51 yet. What filling mechanism do you think is most interesting, regardless of if you like to use it or not?
capillary. That is in the Parker 61, and I've heard of some pen. I don't recognize the brand name is the other one that's tried it, but basically the Parker 61 is the only one that tried it. It is a bugger to clean out, but it just the way it works, taking advantage of the properties of water and how the water molecules are attracted to each other, is just so cool. And if you've ever seen inside one, I've seen a couple videos where they take one apart, and it's just it works. It shouldn't, but it does, and it's all those magical properties of molecules being attracted to each other.
Yeah. What nib size do you prefer to write with?
So it depends on what I'm writing. So right now in the notebook for my notes for stuff, I usually use a fine nib. I find generally an extra fine is too fine, but if I'm writing a letter, especially with a really nice looking ink, I like a broad or a double broad. They're fun for showing off an ink, but business like writing, I want a fine. Plus, if you're writing on school paper, you need a fine because otherwise the kids won't be able to read it.
Yeah. Is there a style of nib you love but would never use?
That is a good question because I'm pretty open to all nibs. I don't know that there's one I would never use. Like I enjoy my flex pens. I have a Waterman 52 and a half inked up right now that's very flexy. Um okay, I can think of one. I have a pen that I have had laying in my pen case saying you got to ink this one up again because you haven't inked it in a long time. It has the nib is split like this at the end, so it's split in four directions. So it's supposed to be able to write just like a ballpoint. And I know when I ink it up, cool idea, but I'm just don't enjoy writing with it. So whatever you call that, that's the one that I find interesting but don't use.
I don't know what you call, like I can sort of see it in my head, but I don't know what it's called. So
Yeah, it's a hero nib, or it's on a hero pen,
okay.
but I don't. Yeah, I have no clue what that nib is called.
Huh.
But it does, it doesn't matter if you rotate the pen or whatever, it just writes.
There's something to be said about that, but also like if you don't actually ink it up.
Yeah, because I just don't enjoy writing with it once it's inked up.
Yeah. Uh, do you always use the same paper? If so, what paper?
Okay, that's another it depends. For letters, I almost always use Tomoe River paper. But for my own purposes, right now I'm writing in a cognitive surplus notebook.
Okay.
I'll use Moleskine. I'm pretty much open to whatever for my own purposes. Um, I, I'm not. I used to be more serious about getting good paper than I am now. I'm just so it feathers a little. Oh well. I've been decluttering. I was getting rid of a bunch of old notebooks and all different kinds of paper, from cheap spiral bound Mead notebooks to Moleskine and cognitive surplus, Apica, Kokuyo, just everything.
I use everything.
Yeah.
Do you have a least favorite ink or ink color family?
I don't know if I have a least favorite ink. Maybe I once got a sample of Noodler's Scarlet Tanager, And that
Okay.
stuff would feather on every single paper I tried. I mean, that stuff even feathered on Tomoe River paper. So maybe that. But probably as far as a family, I've found one or two exceptions, but basically I don't like brown inks. I do own one or two, but I just haven't found very many that I actually like.
Yeah, that's fair. I think brown ink's a tricky one. Well, that's all 20 questions. Thanks for playing.
Okay.